My name is Linda. I am 65 years old. And just 3 days ago, my daughter Rachel told me something no mother ever wants to hear. She said, "We already got married, Mom. Only the people who matter were there. Just send us the beach house keys and stop being so dramatic." Then she hung up. I sat there in silence, the phone still warm in my hand, my heart pounding so loudly it drowned out everything around me. My daughter, the child I raised on my own, had not only excluded me from the most important day of her life, but had dismissed me as though I were nothing more than a neighbor. For a moment, the pain cut so deep I could barely breathe, but pain has a way of sharpening memory. As I sat there, I thought about the long road that led us here. This story did not start with that cold phone call. It began 2 years earlier, the day Rachel introduced me to Ethan, the man who would eventually become her husband. At first, I tried to ignore the unease that crept in. Ethan was polite, well-dressed, overflowing with compliments. He brought roses to our first dinner and asked thoughtful questions about my nursing career, as if he genuinely cared. Most mothers would have been delighted. And for a brief moment, I forced myself to feel happy for her. Rachel deserved love. She deserved someone who respected her bright mind and kind heart. But I have lived long enough to know that not every smile is sincere. My late husband once carried the same polished charm, a charm that disappeared the moment he no longer needed me. And the way Ethan kept circling back to one topic, my beach house, made my instincts hum with warning. That phone call, when Rachel demanded the keys, was not the first sign that something was wrong. It was only the breaking point. 3 days later, I left a wedding gift at their door. A gift that made Ethan scream for hours. But to understand why, I need to take you back to the beginning. 2 years earlier, Rachel called me on a Tuesday evening. Her voice bubbled with excitement in a way that instantly told me something important had happened. "Mom, I want you to meet someone," she said. "His name is Ethan, and he's different. He really gets me." When she arrived that Friday night, she was glowing. Ethan stepped out of the car first, sharp in a tailored suit, holding a bouquet of roses. He greeted me with a handshake firm enough to impress, but not strong enough to feel arrogant. Then he complimented the porch, the garden, even the color of the curtains visible through the window. I remember thinking, no one notices curtains unless they're trying too hard. At dinner, I served my signature lasagna, the one Rachel had begged for since she was 12. Ethan praised it, as though it were the finest dish he had ever tasted. He asked thoughtful questions about my years in nursing, smiled warmly when I spoke, and even offered to wash the dishes afterward. Every gesture screamed perfect gentleman. And yet something about his manner felt rehearsed, like lines practiced in front of a mirror. Still, Rachel's happiness disarmed me. She sat there looking at him with shining eyes, laughing at jokes that were only mildly funny, brushing his arm as though he were the most precious thing in the world. How could I spoil that moment with my doubts? As weeks turned into months, Ethan's presence in Rachel's life grew heavier. He began suggesting changes, new friends, fewer after-work happy hours, less time spent talking with me. Rachel explained it gently. "Mom, Ethan says successful couples prioritize each other. He thinks I should focus more on us and less on everyone else." I nodded, though my chest tightened. I wanted to believe he was right, that Rachel was simply learning to balance love and independence. But each suggestion chipped away at the life she had built before him. Soon our daily phone calls became weekly, then monthly, then barely at all. It was like watching a house lose bricks one at a time. You don't see the collapse immediately, but you know it's coming. Ethan's influence was subtle, wrapped in charm and coated in logic. And Rachel, with her trusting heart, couldn't see it. I told myself I was being overprotective. After all, Rachel was 28, with a good marketing job and a strong sense of independence. Surely she could make her own decisions. Yet deep inside, I remembered my own past. My ex-husband, Robert, had once spoken the same way, weaving control into compliments until I no longer recognized myself. Ethan was not Robert, but he carried the same shadow. I felt it every time he smiled, every time he said, "Your daughter is remarkable," he meant it. But he also meant something else, something I couldn't yet name. The changes didn't happen overnight. They crept in slowly, like the tide rising along the shore. At first, it was small things. Rachel canceling a weekly lunch because she and Ethan had plans, then unanswered texts. Calls going straight to voicemail. Excuses that always circled back to Ethan's preferences. I remember one Saturday, when I had set aside the afternoon to help Rachel pick out new curtains for her condo, a tradition we had shared since she moved into her first apartment. That morning, she called and said, "Mom, Ethan thinks we should spend the day together, just the two of us. He feels like I've been too dependent on you." Her tone was apologetic, but firm. Dependent, that word stung. For years, it had been Rachel and me against the world. After her father left, we leaned on each other not out of weakness, but because that's what family does. To hear my daughter repeat Ethan's belief that our closeness was somehow unhealthy made my chest ache. The real blow came a few months later. I was sipping coffee one morning when a notification popped up on my phone, a new social media post from Rachel. I clicked. There it was, a photo of her left hand sparkling with a massive diamond ring. The caption read, "He asked. I said yes. Can't wait to start our forever together." 53 likes in the first hour. Dozens of comments from friends and colleagues congratulating her. Not one mention of me, because of course, everyone assumed I already knew. But I had learned about my daughter's engagement the same way strangers did through a screen. I called her immediately, my voice trembling. She answered breathlessly. "Oh my God, Mom, I'm so sorry. It just happened last night." "Trevor, sorry," Ethan surprised me. Then we called his parents. "It got so late. I was going to call you this morning." "I promise." She gushed for 20 minutes about the proposal, the restaurant, the ring, the country club where his family planned to host the engagement party. I listened, forcing warmth into my voice, while inside I felt myself shrinking. When I asked about the party, there was a long pause. "Mom, about that, Ethan's family has specific traditions. His mother planned everything, and it's really just for their side. It's not that you're not important, it's just different customs." I wanted to scream. Instead, I kept my voice steady. "And what do you think, Rachel?" Another pause. "I think Ethan knows his family better than I do, and I want to start off on the right foot with them." That was when I understood. It no longer mattered what Rachel thought. It was always what Ethan thought, and I was slowly being erased from my daughter's life. The next wound came on a Tuesday evening I will never forget. I was reorganizing my linen closet, folding towels that smelled faintly of lavender when my phone rang. Rachel's name lit up the screen. My heart leapt. Maybe she missed me the way I missed her. "Mom," she began, her voice calm but distant. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be cool about it." My stomach tightened. Nothing good ever follows that sentence. She explained that Ethan had been reading articles about family dynamics and how important it was for married couples to establish independence from their parents. He believed Rachel relied on me too much, emotionally and otherwise. "Ethan thinks we need more boundaries," she said. "Less contact. More space to create our own traditions." I swallowed my anger and asked quietly, "What does that mean, Rachel?" She hesitated. "For starters, Ethan thinks it would be healthier if we spent the holidays with his family this year, just to break the pattern." Christmas. The one tradition Rachel and I had never broken since her father left. Hot chocolate in pajamas, presents by the fire, laughter filling our small living room. Losing that felt like losing the last thread holding us together. Then came the final twist of the knife. "Ethan also thinks the beach house situation is complicated." I froze. "What about the beach house?" "Well," she said cautiously, "I always assumed I'd inherit it someday, but Ethan feels like that puts pressure on us. He doesn't think he can ever relax there because it's yours, not ours. He thinks maybe it would be better if we had a place of our own, something that truly belongs to us." Her words hit like a storm surge. That house wasn't just property, it was memory. It was where Rachel learned to swim, where we watched sunsets barefoot in the sand, where we survived the hardest years together. "You're asking me to give it to you," I said quietly. Not exactly, Rachel rushed to explain. Ethan just thinks it's healthier if we start fresh. You understand, right? I ended the call promising to think about it, but inside I already knew. Ethan wasn't only after my daughter's love. He was after her future, her security, and the home that had defined our family for generations. After that phone call, I knew I could not sit still any longer. Doubt had turned into certainty, and certainty demanded action. Ethan was not just a man with strong opinions. He was a man with an agenda. My daughter was too blinded by love to see it, but I had lived long enough to recognize the signs. The first step was quiet investigation. I began with the simplest of tools, the internet. A few searches with his full name, Ethan Miller, brought up scattered traces, a college yearbook photo, a LinkedIn page that looked too polished, too vague. Consultant, it said, but offered no company name, no details about clients, just sweeping phrases about financial strategies. I reached out to a few of Rachel's old college friends, women she had stayed close with before Ethan arrived. One of them, Amanda, remembered hearing about Ethan dating another girl years earlier. Her name was Emma. She told me her family owned a string of restaurants in Boston. It got messy. One day, she just disappeared from social media, and her dad went public about cutting ties with a fiancé. I think Ethan was involved. That clue opened the door. I dug deeper, and with the help of a private investigator, confirmed the truth. Ethan had a pattern. Before Rachel, there had been Emma. Before Emma, a young woman named Sarah, who came from a wealthy family with a trust fund. Both relationships had ended abruptly. Both women had been isolated from their families, and both breakups followed financial disputes. The investigator uncovered something even darker. Ethan's grandfather had been involved in shady real estate deals back in the 1980s, including one with my ex-husband, Robert. The deal ended with Robert nearly bankrupt after funds disappeared. Money traced back to the Morrison family. Robert never recovered financially or emotionally. And now, decades later, Ethan was living off money hidden in offshore accounts. Money that legally belonged to Robert's estate, which meant it belonged to Rachel. My heart pounded as the pieces fit together. This wasn't random. Ethan had researched Rachel long before their so-called chance meeting. He knew about her job, her inheritance, and yes, our beach house. He targeted her the way a predator targets prey, studying her vulnerabilities until he found the perfect way in. For days, I carried the weight of that knowledge torn between confrontation and caution. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Ethan was building a trap around Rachel, and if I didn't act soon, she would lose everything. So I began to plan. Not an angry outburst, not a dramatic showdown, but something that would strike harder than rage. I would give him a gift, something he could not ignore, something that would tear his carefully constructed lies apart. It would look like a wedding present wrapped in silver paper and tied with a white bow, but inside it would carry the truth. The wedding itself happened quietly, almost in secret. I was not invited, of course. One morning, Rachel called and announced as if it were casual news. "Mom, we already got married yesterday. It was just close family and friends." Ethan thought a big wedding would be too much pressure. I congratulated her with a steady voice, though inside my chest felt hollow. Then came the real purpose of her call. "Ethan and I were wondering if you could send us the keys to the beach house. We'd love to spend our honeymoon there." I said yes. But what I did next was not what either of them expected. For 3 days, I worked carefully. I gathered the documents from the investigator, records of Ethan's grandfather's theft, bank statements showing Ethan's access to the offshore accounts, newspaper articles from decades past. I added copies of emails between Ethan and his associate Marcus Webb, where they discussed strategies for keeping the money hidden. Each page told a story of lies and greed. I placed them neatly inside a leather portfolio, the kind that looked expensive and professional. Then I tied a white bow around the outside and slipped a short note beneath it. "Congratulations on your marriage. Every new husband should know his wife's family history. With love, Linda. That Friday, I drove to their apartment, walked up the steps, and set the package gently at their door. I did not ring the bell. I did not wait for them to find it. I simply turned, walked back to my car, and drove home. At 21:17 that afternoon, my phone rang. Rachel's number appeared, but when I answered, it was Ethan's voice, loud and furious. "What the hell is wrong with you, you crazy old witch? How dare you send us this garbage?" I held my teacup steady. "Hello, Ethan. I take it you opened your wedding gift. This is harassment," he shouted. "I'm calling the police." I smiled to myself. "And what exactly will you tell them? That your mother-in-law gave you a gift containing public records, court documents, bank statements." In the background, I could hear Rachel crying, begging him to calm down. But Ethan was too rattled, his mask of charm shattered. My gift had done exactly what I intended. That evening my phone rang again. This time it was Rachel. Her voice was thick from crying. "Mom, what did you do? Ethan says you're trying to destroy our marriage." I spoke gently. "Sweetheart, I gave you both a wedding gift. Did you read through it?" A pause stretched between us. I read enough. "Ethan says it's all lies, that you're jealous, that you never wanted us to be happy." Her words trembled as though she wanted to believe him but could not ignore the doubt creeping in. "Rachel," I said softly, "ask yourself this. If it were really all lies, why would he be so furious? Why wouldn't he want to clear his family's name? Why wouldn't he see this as an opportunity to get justice for your father?" There was silence on the line, broken only by her uneven breathing. Finally, she whispered, "Mom, did his grandfather really steal money from Dad?" "Yes," I said, $2.3 million. Your father spent years trying to recover it. The stress of it all contributed to him leaving us when you were young. Ethan has been living off that money for years." I could hear her gasp. In the background, Ethan shouted for her to hang up, but instead she lowered her voice. "I found something, Mom." After he stormed out, I went through his desk. There are emails between him and someone named Marcus Webb. They've been talking about offshore accounts, about how to keep the inheritance flowing. The dates go back years, even before we met. Her words came faster now, a mix of fear and anger. "I also called Emma, the woman in your file. She told me everything. How Ethan isolated her, tried to take her money, even had her rewrite her will in his favor. She gave me Sarah's number, too. Same story, Mom, exactly the same." I closed my eyes, relief washing through me. "I'm so sorry, Rachel. I never wanted you to learn this way." "Don't apologize," she said firmly. "You tried to warn me. I didn't listen. But now I know who Ethan really is, and I'm going to make him pay. I just need your help." For the first time in 2 years, my daughter's voice carried strength instead of doubt. The next morning, Rachel came to my house. She looked exhausted, her eyes swollen from nights of crying, but her expression was steady. She placed a folder on the kitchen table, the same table where she had once done homework as a child. Inside were the emails she had found, conversations between Ethan and Marcus Webb about hiding the Morrison inheritance in offshore accounts. "Mom," she said quietly, "I want to fight back, but I can't do this alone." I reached across the table and took her hand. "You're not alone, we'll do this together." We started by contacting the law firm that had handled Robert's estate. Attorney Patricia Winters met with us that same week. She confirmed that Rachel, as Robert's only heir, had a legitimate claim to the stolen funds. But more than that, she explained that Ethan could be charged with criminal conspiracy and money laundering since he knowingly accessed accounts tied to the theft. Patricia also connected us with a federal investigator, Agent Jennifer Lee. When Agent Lee heard Ethan's name, she nodded as if she had been waiting. "We've had him on our radar," she admitted. 2 other women's families have already filed complaints. What we need is direct evidence linking him to the fraud. Rachel hesitated for a moment, then straightened her shoulders. "What if I can get him to admit it? On record?" That was the plan. Agent Lee outlined the steps carefully. Rachel would continue communicating with Ethan, pretending to believe his apologies. When he inevitably came crawling back, as manipulators always do, she would wear a wire. All conversations would be monitored. All they needed was one clear confession. The thought of Rachel facing Ethan again made my stomach twist, but I also saw the determination in her eyes. She was no longer the woman under his control. She was ready to fight. That evening, Rachel drafted a message to Ethan. She typed slowly, each word carefully chosen. "I miss you. I'm sorry I doubted you. Mom was just jealous. Can we start over?" Ethan replied within minutes. "Of course, sweetheart. I'll come home Friday. We'll begin fresh." Rachel put down her phone and looked at me. "He thinks I'm still blind, but this time I'll be ready." Friday evening arrived like the quiet before a storm. Rachel had prepared herself all day, coached by Agent Lee and supported by me in every way I could. When Ethan walked into their apartment, he carried flowers and wine, playing the role of the apologetic husband. His smile was polished, his words dripping with charm, but Rachel knew better now. Hidden beneath her blouse was a small recording device, and in the parking lot below, federal agents waited. At first, their conversation was light. Ethan spoke about planning a real honeymoon, about how they should merge savings accounts for convenience. He told her she had been foolish to doubt him and that her mother was only trying to control her. Rachel listened, nodding at the right moments, letting him believe she was slipping back into his web. Then, with practiced calm, she asked, "Ethan, you've always been honest with me, right? Even about your grandfather's money." For a split second, his eyes flickered. He leaned closer and lowered his voice. "You don't need to worry about that. Those accounts are safe. No one can touch them, not even your mother. Once everything is under our name, it will all be ours." That was the moment. Agent Lee's voice came through Rachel's earpiece. "We've got it. Hold steady." Minutes later, the door burst open. Agent stormed in, commanding Ethan to stand down. He froze, stunned. As Rachel stepped back, in his eyes the mask finally cracked, revealing not charm but pure panic. By Monday, the story was on every local news outlet. Man arrested in multi-state financial fraud scheme. Though they did not name Rachel, his mugshot was plastered across screens. The perfect fiancé, polished consultant, now exposed as a predator. The trial began 6 weeks later. Rachel sat in the courtroom, flanked by Emma and Sarah, the women who had once lived her same nightmare. Together, they testified about Ethan's manipulation, his calculated targeting of women with family wealth, and his schemes to isolate them from loved ones. The jury needed less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts: fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, and marriage fraud with intent to commit grand larceny. The sentence was 12 years in federal prison. Ethan's carefully crafted world collapsed, leaving nothing but the truth behind. The day of the sentencing, Rachel stood before the court to deliver her statement. Her voice was steady, but every word carried the weight of what she had endured. "Ethan Miller did not just steal money," she said, looking directly at him. "He stole my trust, my independence, and nearly my relationship with the only parent who ever stood by me. But he failed because in the end, I found my strength again, and I will never let someone like him define my life." As she stepped down, I felt tears sting my eyes. For 2 years, I had watched my daughter drift away. Convinced by a manipulator that I was her enemy, now standing tall in front of strangers and jurors, she reclaimed her voice. It was the fiercest victory I could have asked for. Life after the trial was quieter but richer. Rachel and I spent afternoons at the beach house again, drinking coffee on the porch, remembering summers filled with laughter. The same house Ethan once thought he could take away became the symbol of our resilience. One evening, Rachel turned to me as the sun dipped into the horizon. "Mom," she said softly, "someday when I meet the right man, the one who truly deserves me, I want to get married right here, barefoot in the sand, just like I dreamed when I was little." I squeezed her hand. "That day will come, and when it does, I'll be right beside you. This story is not just about betrayal or revenge. It is about the strength that lies in truth, the courage it takes to break free from manipulation, and the unshakable bond between a mother and her child. So if you are listening today, remember this. People who try to control you will always disguise it as love. Trust your instincts. Protect the relationships that matter. And never forget, truth is the gift that keeps on giving. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more. And remember, your voice matters.